Hey guys, welcome to Starting Out Solitary. I'm your Thursday host, Michelle, and this week's topic is things we're afraid to do in our practice. So this week we're talking about things we're afraid to do in our practice, or things we might be afraid to attempt in our practice. And I had to think about this one for a little bit because I can't really come up with anything that I would be afraid to do or afraid to attempt in my practice at this point. But I do have to say that in the beginning, when I first started practicing and first started, actually getting my hands dirty and trying things, I did have a slight sense of fear about certain things, like the fear of, am I doing this right? Or the fear of, what if something unintended happens? But I think that fear tends to go away and it tends to vanish and kind of just melt off you once you get into the swing of things with your own practice. And once you get comfortable in your own practice and doing your own thing, you get way more comfortable as time passes, and things don't tend to scare you like they may have in the beginning of your practice when you were first starting or first trying things. A lot of people, when they are first starting out in their practice and are attempting to do those first few spells or first few rituals, have some sort of underlying fear regarding whether or not they're doing it right, or whether or not something unintended may happen or something bad might happen. But that fear, I have to say, it does tend to diminish, and before you know it, you're not really afraid to do anything because your confidence has been built up. And over time, and everyone's different, some people develop this confidence rather quickly. Other people, it takes some time to develop their confidence. And then there's those people who, even after a couple years of practice, still don't have that confidence. So in the back of their mind, there might be some fears and there might be some worries about doing things right or having things happen that they don't want to happen. But in my opinion, if you are comfortable and confident in your practice and what you're doing, then there's nothing to be afraid of, there's nothing to fear. Because if you can develop your own confidence and your own sense of peace with what you're doing, then there's no reason to worry about whether something's going to happen that you don't want to happen or not. Now, if you go into your practice with those fears in mind, like, oh no, what if this doesn't happen the way I want it to, then chances are it's not going to happen the way you want it to. You see what I'm saying? If you go into it with the right frame of mind and with an air of confidence, even if it's fake confidence at first, it'll help you get there. It'll help you get to that point where you're not worried. You don't have any underlying fears in the back of your mind. Now, as far as fear in relation to things like, maybe curses or hexes, or maybe something a little more on the darker or negative side, that fear I think is a little different. I don't really have a fear per se of performing a curse or a hex or anything like that. If I'm going to go that far as to do something like that, I've prepared in advance accordingly, and I've done a lot of research, and I've done a lot of planning and divination, and that's not something you just pick up and decide to do one day. That's something that you plan for, and you make sure all your ducks in a row. You make sure you definitely want to do this, and it takes time to build that up and plan everything out and make sure everything is just right before you actually follow through with maybe a darker spell or ritual, or something that might, if you don't plan appropriately, something that might affect someone else. So you just have to plan appropriately and make sure that your I's are dotted, your T's are crossed, you've covered all your bases, you've covered every scenario you can think of where something might happen that you don't want to happen, and you've covered that, and you have things in place to make sure you're protected and other people that may be involved are protected. So in that, in that sense, I don't really have any fears at the moment of anything, attempting anything in my practice. I'm not going to say I'll never have a fear to attempt or try anything in my practice, because you never know. I don't know what the future will bring. But currently, I'm really not afraid or scared at this point in time of anything that I may or may not do in my practice. So, anyways, I hope you guys found this helpful, and I hope you guys are having a great week.